There we go. Okay. Good. Yeah, Benedict, so good to have you here at Ithaca College, and please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here to speak to y'all. Um, so, my name is Benedict Hadley. I'm a founder, filmmaker, and Polymath of the Hadley Broadcasting Company. And I started, my journey sort of starts in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born. And I'm 43 now. I'll be 44 this year. And I think I started kind of getting acclimated and being exposed to cameras when I was about 4 years old. I grew up in a cul-de-sac in Brooklyn, that was like an apartment building, but it was surrounded by the projects. And I was always extremely like uh, visually sensitive since I was a child. Um, in my household, like the things that were important were God, I should say spirituality and art and education. And so my mom wanted me to be an interpreter, and she wanted my brother, Dwayne, who's an actor now, to be a maestro. And so growing up in that setting, which is reasonably rough, you're talking about like 1988, let's say, when I was about like 7 or 8 years old or something like that. And there was a lot of like crime, things like that. So I had to figure out how to use my imagination and my natural ability to be able to escape sort of what I was seeing aesthetically and otherwise in daily life. So I think it was the 19th of June in 1989. Tim Burton, the director, he dropped a Batman film that had a huge marketing push. And not just like, nowadays everything says Batman if when they drop a Batman movie or a Justice League movie, a Superman movie, or whatever. But this was just like the logo embossed in sort of like a like 3D without it looking, something without it looking. There was no the computer graphics weren't around back then like they are now. So, you know, uh, you have this aesthetically jarring image of something that as a kid, you're used to reading a comic book or, nowadays you guys are watching, television and things like that. And we were back then, but the it was a big deal for me to see the something I was reading in the comic book transcend to all these different types of textures and mediums around me, particularly as a kid. So, later that evening, we went to the movies. We saw Batman at this old Ziegfeld movie theater in Brooklyn, the Kenmore movie theater in Church and Flatbush Avenue. You can Google Map these locations so you can kind of get a sense of what I was seeing because the area really hasn't changed. So again, it's on the corner of Church Avenue and Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn. And you're going to see, I think there's a Target there now where the movie theater is, but there's still the old billboard that transfixed me when I walked out of the movie theater and saw not only everybody who's normally used to kind of being in a sort of beef and tension in the neighborhood, that ceased. And everyone was just like having a good time. And I was like seeing this sort of in slow motion that this movie kind of charged everybody up in a positive way. And simultaneously, as we were waiting for the cab across the street, I looked up and I saw this massive billboard that was above the movie theater. And it was like for a Nike ad, I think. And I couldn't afford Nikes growing up. I knew that, but it was really magnified a few days later when we returned back to school, and everybody was in class, talking about the movie. And the freshest kid in class, he comes in. Normally he'd be rocking the latest Jordans, but he wasn't wearing any sneakers because somebody had stole his sneakers on the way to school. that morning. So I'll tell you how kind of aggressive the neighborhood was. So I knew that most kids in the class couldn't afford these things. And, you know, I got all this messaging all at the same time. And what it kind of showed me was, yes, the power of storytelling through the transmuting of a story from a comic book to this film that could transfix this neighborhood that was already, all you know, pretty aggressive and, you know, had its fair share of problems. But the billboard and the combination of the young man getting his sneakers stolen, it showed me sort of the power of broadcasting. And from a socioeconomic standpoint, like us being, you know, brown immigrants, my parents are both from St. Vincent, which is an island in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, excuse me. It showed me the power of broadcasting and sort of the hidden hand that is was in and continues to be in communities underserved and affluent, that people don't really have a say in. And so I was thinking about this last night, that it really, you know, that was the moment for me that got me in love with not just filmmaking, but with broadcasting, you know. And so I've had a very early exposure to concepts like ownership and equity and how the media changes the aesthetics of a community and how important aesthetics are into a community. So fast forward, you know, I go to art schools all my life, public art schools, sort of, I wouldn't say dabbled in, but took like majors and minors throughout these, you know, schools in commercial art, fine art, architecture, interior design, filmmaking. Ultimately, I was kicked out of my fine arts class in high school for mouthing off to the teacher after she was, you know, talking smack. So
love it.
she deserved it. So they put me in the filmmaking class, and I was there with all my friends, and I used to hang out with like you know, my guys from Brooklyn who were like more into hip hop and stuff. And I used to hang out with like my, you know, punk rock alternative friends listening to Radiohead and Pearl Jam and whatnot. So it was a real great education. And none of those like kind of hip hop dudes were in the filmmaking class besides one, my best friend Deshaun. And that gave me an opportunity to like cut my teeth in all the sort of like weird stuff and, you know, techniques that I couldn't do with my friends from like around the way who were kind of more closed-minded. Not all of them, but you know, the majority of them are kind of closed-minded. So fast forward a little bit after you know, graduating high school, and you know, I think my mentor promised to give me his sob. So I was like, if I went to school kind of locally, so I went to school in Philadelphia at the Art Institute of Philadelphia, and went there for, I mean, a little bit over a year. I was really like not into it. You know, I was working for Armani at the time, part-time, and so I was able to get a ton of free clothes, and you know, I was working to pay for my school at the same time. So I would come in a little bit late from, you know, working the night before to my classes, not to mention I'm like dripped head to toe in fine Italian threads, and the professor. So after, you know, a few comments that I deemed as like kind of being like racially a little bit geared that way, I was just like not feeling it, and I left. And you know, I ended up working for Armani for a little bit, maybe a few months in New York, and then I ended up getting a job through my mentor Kevin Barnes. He was he passed away, but he was like a Black architect. And I don't know if any of you like are growing up in entrepreneurial households, but it's rare to find a highly skilled professional, you know, Black artist you know, back then, you know, it was really like an amazing, just sort of like connection. So he was able to like walk me through things in addition to me getting my first internship turned job at a place called the Shooting Gallery, which was over in Varick Street, downtown Manhattan. And they made movies like Sling Blade and with Billy Bob Thornton, which was like, I think, you know, I think maybe he won a best picture, a best, excuse me, a best actor for that. I'll look that up. But you know, like Hot 97 was up the block, and this is pre 9/11. So it was like really like a different sort of crunchy time and very fly and, you know, art centric. And so I was there for a few months and ended up working on this Jay-Z video with this producer, and on set for that Jay-Z video was in Brooklyn, and it was Jay-Z and you know, R. Kelly, a song called Jigga Kelly Not Guilty. It's like it was shot downtown Brooklyn by the courts. Jay-Z was going through some sort of court trial, so it was like the album was like covering that. And again, it was like creatively, it was like a big moment, particularly from Brooklyn. And I'm like, you know, in this neighborhood that I grew up in, that I'm now working in as a PA on this Jay-Z video. And I just basically did my thing. Like I was really like going above and beyond what people were telling me to do because I was so excited. To the point where I remember we were across the street from where the assistant directors and the director, Paul Hunter, who was my favorite director at the time, he shot a lot of amazing gap spots where they use the matrix technique of like, you know, the camera, you know, spinning around folks. We were, you know, around for like the kind of pioneering of this technology. And I was working with these people, so it was really exciting. And so either way, we're in Harlem, across the street from Sylvia's, like this really prolific and important restaurant there that's been there for a long time. And so he jumps in. I'm across the street at like the little rinky-dink spot getting my lunch with my little PA, Petty Cash, and he and his crew jump in Sylvia's. They hop out of their red excursion and they go into Sylvia's to get something to eat. I drop my money and my food there that I'm about to pay for, and I run across the street in thirsty fashion, and I get a table directly across from them. I have no money though because I left my money there, and I just want to kind of be in the same vicinity of them. And you know, the waitress takes my order. I have no money, but I give them my order anyway, and I'm sitting there drinking my water and kind of creepily staring at them. And I hear a voice behind me from a woman that walks in, and she's a location manager that hired me over the phone. So I turn around, I'm like, "Oh, I'm Benedict. Remember you hired me?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, good to see you. You want to come sit with us?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So they ended up taking care of everything. And I kind of like magnetized myself into the kind of inner circle of the production, where by the end of that shoot, they had hired me to the next job as like, I think a second AD or something like that, because I was like really just like going hard and, oh, you need this, you need that, you need this. I'm not knowing about like any sense of decorum and stepping on anybody's toes or anything like that. I'm just going hard. So fast forward a little bit more, you know, back at the shooting gallery, I find out about the New York City mayor's office for film and television, and that they release these job reports every Monday. And come to find out that American Zoetrope, Francis Ford Coppola's production company, is looking for an intern. So there's an Italian brother there who's like speaks barely no English. He's an intern, but he looks like he's like 40. And he's the one that puts me on to this Francis gig at American Zoetrope. And so I send them my resume, and they hire me. And come to find out many, many years later, because I'm still cool with some of the folks there, they told me that they received like 500 resumes that day, and they just stuck their hand inside of the pile and pulled one resume out, and my resume was what they had pulled out. And So everything's rocking and rolling. You know, we're working on movies. I'm designing posters for them. I'm designing artwork for them. I went from being an intern, again, shoving my way into meetings and saying that, oh, I can do this, which I did at the shooting gallery, you know, writing music videos for them as well. And they, you know, end up hiring me to, Zoetrope ends up hiring me to do these posters for some films that were going overseas to the Cannes Film Festival, like Jeepers Creepers and a few other films. Things that, you know, were, you know, Jeepers Creepers opened up, I think, like #1 that weekend. It was like the highest grossing Labor Day movie that time. And just to know that I was working on something like that at home, excuse me, in the city, and then taking the train back to Brooklyn and my mom's house was really just like a really magical experience for me. And was like pouring gasoline over that sort of like childlike spark that people seem to extinguish, you know, very early on in their youth, you know, once they go get the bag or try to get the. So, where was I? So, you know, things are going well at American Zoetrope, but simultaneously, I'm running a small company with my friends where we're designing like invitations and posters for people like Ice-T and the Fugees and Busta Rhymes' people. And, you know, we were just making it happen as young dudes, you know, with a Mac. And then 9/11 happened. And I was on the train going to 1350 Avenue of the Americas, where MGM was, where the Francis Coppola office was. And I remember getting on the Manhattan train and seeing, I was like, man, like New York is like looking really dirty, like the sky, like it's almost looking like Los Angeles right now. Like what's up with the sky? And then I kind of like everybody was like staring at the window towards the towers, and there's like this huge hole in the side of it, and that was the end of American Zoetrope in New York. We weren't at the towers, but I think Francis thought it was too much of a liability to have his office there, and he shut the office down and moved everyone, pretty much canned everybody, but um, you know, moved out to San Francisco and Los Angeles where he could keep a closer eye on things. Just a side note that at that time we were working on this picture called Megalopolis, which he just released last year. So you're talking about like a 20 plus journey to make a film. And I just wanted to throw that out there. It's about like dedication. So fast forward to a few years afterwards, the film industry kind of dried up in New York because major productions, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie was shooting in New York. They had to do reshoots because the towers were like all up in the movie. They thought that was too sensitive a visual particularly because of the time period, like it being shortly thereafter, 9/11, and it was just like it was a mess. I think Men in Black got affected by it as well. So these huge Hollywood pictures got affected, and work definitely dried up in the city. And I had to go out and get a job as an assistant gas mechanic and working for Brooklyn Union Gas, which was called Keyspan at the time. So I was the only gas man wearing like a Sean John jacket with like a fox fur hood and aviator glasses in the truck. And I'm taking like notes in my moleskin notebook, and the guys were like, "Yo, are you like a spy? Like, what are you doing taking like, oh?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a filmmaker." And they're like, "Word, you're a filmmaker?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. I used to be doing this, that, and the other before I came over here." And some of the guys thought it was really cool. Particularly some of the management thought it was really cool. So, I had this idea for this movie when I was 17 called the National Anthem. I was like listening to this Radiohead song of the same name from the album Kid A on the train, and when I was leaving high school, saw that everybody was pretty much doing the same thing. They were slogging around on the train, in uniform fashion. And I thought that was really an interesting phenomenon of like the job market, you know, that part of it, the soul sucking part of it. And so I got to witness this as somebody that was like not down with it at that point. And so I revisited that film when I was working at Keyspan, and I decided to shoot it there and leverage my relationships with management to film at Metrotech Center, which is like a billion-dollar complex downtown Brooklyn that normally you would need probably $2 million worth of production insurance, workers' comp, yada 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 yada, all sorts of things that I did not have at the time. And but I was driven to shoot this film, and went out and wrote it and shot this film about this young lady who lives in a world where everyone looks the same and wears black and white face masks. And it was a silent film. Shot it at Metrotech, got my friends and my parents together and the whole thing. My mom, at least, showed up, and we shot this piece, and it was really amazing. I had a younger daughter at the time. She, not at the time, had my younger daughter, and she was a baby at the time, and so I we used her $800 Bugaboo stroller as the dolly, and duct taped the camera tripod to the dolly, and got the permit to shoot on the Brooklyn Bridge and shut down the walkway at like 5 a.m. And I'm doing this all at like I think like 20, 21 years old, just like taking my information that I learned from Francis and being on set working on commercials and things like that, and music videos from the shooting gallery, and leveraging those things. Like I would make like copies of permits that I was making for productions and go home and study them, or like look at Paul Hunter's camera for his Hourflex 450 and go home, go to Francis's office and like print the 400 copies of it, 400 pages of it, and like read it, and just like really geeking out and loving what I was doing. So where was I? Francis shuts down. Fast forward to working at Keyspan, shoot this film, the national anthem. And in my brilliant ignorance, I put all this music on it, like John Williams and just all these amazing composers. John Williams, for you who don't know, is Steven Spielberg's like primary composer. He did the Jurassic Park theme and so on and so forth. And in order to show a film at a film festival, you're using somebody else's music, you have to have rights to this music. And so you can obtain something called festival rights. So I went out and figured out the procedure of how to obtain festival rights for John Williams's music and a bunch of other people whose music that I had on the score for the film. And one of those bands was a band called Interpol, which was signed to Matador Records at the time. They were like a platinum selling rock band. They're still around, making good music. And I used to hang out in this hotel, the W in Times Square, and it was like late at night, and I got like a message at like 11 o'clock on my BlackBerry from Interpol's management saying that they love the movie and they want to score it with original music. So, the national anthem cost me $1,700, not including the $800 baby stroller / dolly. So, and it was really mind blowing for me. So it was a lesson in like passion and following that inner voice and how it can unfold into something, like if you're obedient to that inner voice, how it can unfold for you and create amazing things.
Yeah.
So
and Bennett, let me just interject. We just had a thing where an Ithaca College alumnus spoke about competing in entertainment business, and they were published in a Wall Street Journal editorial. Kind of the campus is all abuzz, and one of the things this person said was competing against an Ivy League person for the same job, and because they like showed up on time, something as simple as that, they had an edge. And that was one of the things that really struck me when we spoke this summer, that I wanted to make sure that everybody was very much exposed to. Like, you're kind of learning by doing and jumping in, and some good things happen to you, and then you take advantage of it. Is that a good way to kind of typify what your secret sauce is?
Yeah, and then being resilient, because with every, like literally with every nose and falling down, there's a yes that will change your life totally. You're gonna get breadcrumbs on the journey, but there's gonna be a lot of unknown, I wish there was a university to teach me all the things that, I've learned in the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe we got to turn you into a teacher too. Who knows? That's another topic. Let's shift. Can you talk about some of the current stuff? Because I want to have time for the class to really throw some of their questions at you. So maybe give us a little bit of that, and then we'll go to student questions.
Super fast. So, shot music videos, commercials, all sorts of formats of work through the sense of discovery. Like, I want to learn how to master the medium. After the national anthem, I kind of figured out the classical way how to tell a film, to tell a story, and wanted to really develop my own language with it. So shot music videos, commercials, and all sorts of formats for a while, mobile phone commercials and things like that. And had a bad situation on a set in Puerto Rico in 2012 where I didn't feel like I was being respected as an artist, which really made me realize that I wasn't respecting myself as an artist by taking these jobs. And so I simultaneously that year figured that out in Puerto Rico, had my best friend, Deshaun, who I mentioned earlier, pass away at like 32 years old on that. And then I had a film that I had really helped create and edited and art directed and all sorts of things and saved. Was the director. They flipped it to get a more prominent director at the last minute. And he bombed on it because we were directing, he was directing a gentleman, Michael K. Williams, who was in The Wire, who passed away. He had a scar on his face. He played Omar in The Wire, if you know him. But we went to Cannes with that film, the Cannes Film Festival, and that was one of 3 times I was there. I went there with the national anthem a few years before that. And it showed me that I really need to respect myself as an artist and as an individual, and, assert my gift properly. So I started going back to my roots of changing the aesthetics of communities with the art and with storytelling. And I started doing these things in the street called block hacks, where I would do like reconnaissance on a city street. And then in the middle of the night, I would set up an art installation there and then shoot that. And I did that throughout the years, and got married, and continued to capture this footage of me sort of transforming into a polymath and taking my directing ability and fusing it with my purpose, which is to go back to that original 7-year-old kid and get agency for the community through media. And we moved to Newark, where we developed a film there, the film that we're wrapping right now, called Supreme Messages from an Unknown Source. And it's a docufiction about how the family was formed and moved to Newark, was formed and moved to Newark. And we decided to create a sustainable renaissance there, really from the inside out. And meaning, like, you got to fix the inside before you fix your community on the outside. And so it's really a story about that. And in the story, the lead character, he's driven through a tragedy, to create a broadcasting company in the city, an international broadcasting company that whose origin is in the city. And we wanted to do that for real, sort of like you see, like, Iron Man is a great film, for instance, right? But I think in the Happy Meal that coincides with the release of the movie, maybe they could have some information about STEM and how those things can maybe affect the kid's life directly instead of it being so like passive in a child's life and in the people's life. So we wanted to make something that to have a story that's driving a technology that can address a social issue in the community. And our framework for that was the Sustainable Development Goals that were in part created by the United Nations. And so our public broadcasting company, which is the origin of it, excuse me, the starting point of it is in Newark. It's being installed, in the process of being installed as we speak, for launching in the Newark Arts Festival, which is the beginning of next month. And we're installing 15 high definition projectors along a high crime strip in Newark. And those projectors are going to be tokenized through our partners Hedera and our Swiss partners WiseKey, which is a cybersecurity microprocessor creation company. They're based in Geneva, as well as another company that they own, CLSQ. So our chips are going in, those chips are going inside of their projectors, and we're going to be projecting art from the film as well as interactive scenarios where the community hopefully is able to sort of like, add to their income through like civic-based gaming. We're trying to gamify civics in that town to give the kids something to do that's actually going to put money in their pocket and thereby usurp the gang money that they're making, which all ties into the story of Supreme Messages as well, like into the narrative of it. So that's our first project. My company, Hadley Broadcasting, we develop movies, narratives, stories that are accompanied with a technology, an app, a public broadcasting system. We think that storytelling is some of the oldest technology in the world. It's used to put information into it so that way it can be easily digestible. And I feel that, the camera and filmmaking are a great tool to be able to stop a lot of the crazy issues that we have going on in our society nowadays. And it's all been a real blessing and a journey to do it this way, and to have the circle that we have, and to get the thumbs up, and to have the people on the phone that we have. And we have such a great network of people, the biggest stars in the world, some of the most powerful folks in the world at our disposal that have been helping us for years. And it's an amazing thing, Ed being one of them, just a synergy there. So it's all working.
So impressive. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, from a Batman movie to, helping neighborhoods with a focused way, I think it's just amazing. I've got about 100 questions for you. Do we have some questions from the team? Anybody want to come on up to the hot point? Come on up, Lank.
I unmute myself, or?
No, you know what? You can do it from right here, probably. Yeah, do it from here, and be sure to introduce yourself too.
Sure. Hi, my name's Link.
Hey, Link.
A question about finding, an audience. So you mentioned how a lot of what you create is based on, your own personal experience, and it sounds very unique and very one of one. So I'm just curious about how you take something that's so, unique and find an audience for that.
So, I kind of, I'm always doing sort of like little social experiments. And so by me playing the lead in the film, for instance, I had to walk around Newark, like rocking our wardrobe and, in character, and nobody knew I was really in character. And I got to see the city kind of gravitate to that, which is kind of like your own focus group. I got to see when I cut my hair and posted it online as part of like, not for self-promotion, so to speak, but how the kids in the neighborhood started cutting their hair like that, right? So, if you can get a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid who's kind of maybe gang affiliated in Newark to copy your haircut, you know, that's a big deal. You know, so it already shows me that there's an audience there. And you know, if you listen to the greats, you know, the Quincy Jones, the Spielbergs, the David Lynches, the, you know, the Spike Lees, you know, just humanity in general, like nobody's going to be down with it until really everybody's down with it. You've got your core group of people, and you've got, you know, I've got folks with incredible taste that are at the top of their game that are part of the film. So I'm like, okay, well, if Jay-Z and David Hammonds and Francis Ford Coppola, and if they're down with it, then I must be onto something, you know? And I feel like if God keeps on like opening up doors, like I needed the projectors, and we formed a partnership with Rico and Pentax to get the projectors. You know, we needed cameras, we got them through Pentax. Like, so, you know, it's just breadcrumbs. And so you're not gonna, some things you need to just be faithful. You know, you're not gonna, you've got to believe in it. And, you know, it's if in this day and age, we're looking for like metrics a lot, and it may not be there, but it may be there in your heart. And you may just have to just grab onto that and follow it and believe it, because you know, it's like anything. You want to have a relationship with it when it's genuine and authentic. And you know, it's about the story. You know, I remember in the film Napoleon Dynamite, which started off like very small and ended up being a massive success. They believed in it, and I think Jared Hess, I believe the director of it, he said that if you know, when you build it, people will show up. If you build it and you believe in it, that has a certain resonance with it, and your audience may be, you know, 1,000 people, it may be 100 million people. But you know, if you're authentic, it will find itself. You know, your audience will find it. And I'm reliant off of that. I think that when we craft something, our taste level is going to get us through where we need to be from an audience perspective.
Thank you.
Cool, good. Next question. Got another good one. Yeah, you know, I love that idea of breadcrumbs and having a little faith in it all. That's great, and building the partnerships. Could you tell us a little bit too, Benedict, how as you go forward in the world and make these partnerships happen, and you know, pull together people to be part of your support system or part of your team? You know, how do you do that? It's a big place. It's hard to get one's name out. What are some of the things that you do that also the class and these students could also follow? So any like top level advice, but also, you know, real bottom level advice. I mean, always do this or never do this, or make sure whatever it is.
I mean, I had a friend that used to ask me like, Ben, how do you know all these people? And I used to say like, listen, man, create hot work, tell everybody about it. You know, I shot the national anthem. Nobody paid me to do it. I was like, I'm the man. And I went out and proved it, because like, I don't believe in any like waiting for people to, you know, hop the fence and go shoot it. You know, there's a great documentary called A Decade Under the Influence about 1970s filmmakers like Francis Coppola and Martin Scorsese making their films and getting shut down by the cops for no permits, and then waiting in their cars for the cops to leave, and then going in there and, you know, shooting their shot, doing what they need to do. I, especially in these day and age, recommend being careful about those things, but there's ways to go and get what you need to get, you know, with what you have. I would say, you know, be careful. If I would say any advice, you know, be authentic to yourself. You know, your heart is going to be one of the most important things that you take care of in this life. And not just from a physical perspective, but like how you think about yourself, how you think about your divinity, you being a special individual and a being. You're more than a job in the job market. And I think those things are really important to realize, particularly in this day and age where we have a lot of issues that as humanity we have to address, from climate to social issues and so on. So I would really say, be true to yourself, and try to get as much information from a legal perspective about what you're doing. See if there's a guidebook, see if you can hook up with a mentor, see if you can find someone that you can trust, because the industries can be very predatory, and for the most part, if you shoot it, you own it. So make sure that you know who owns your work, and make sure you know how to protect yourself, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't believe in the illusions in your mind saying that you're this or you're that, or you can't do it. This whole world, the tables that you're sitting on, the carpet that your feet are on, it's all started off as someone's idea. And so if you kind of realize that the world is just a series of ideas, and people like being scared out of their mind and still doing it anyway, it'll show you that the universe has your back, and the creator has your back. And just be faithful, I think, is the primary thing that's been in my journey. And obtain information. Don't be afraid. Don't think that you know everything. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, don't be sorry. That's fantastic. I love everything you said. In fact, I think I'm gonna do a T-shirt of create hot work and tell everyone about it, and hop the fence and go shoot it. Like, man, or maybe that's my next tattoo. I don't know. That's just great.
On the neck.
Yeah, right there. That look good on me. Good. Can I introduce you to Max? He's got a question for you.
How's it going? Thanks for coming to speak with us today. I was really interested in your whole NFT and crypto partnership there with your projectors. I'm a musician myself, and I'm always interested in ways that can create new ways for artists and creatives to make revenue, especially if it's going back to community or any sort of social change. So I'd love to hear more about just how that came to fruition and where the idea came from.
So it's very interesting is that because I've had this really deep spiritual relationship with the creator since I was a kid, I kind of am on a different wavelength. So I say that to say that I always realized that if people were using their vocation, their natural abilities, the world wouldn't be in such chaos, because the world is in part in chaos because the industries have fuel for the fire by taking students, turning them into employees, and okay, now you're going to work for Google, now you're going to work for OpenAI, but you maybe were supposed to be doing this over here in this lane, and that was your destiny, and you're not going to find that out until maybe 10 years of getting smacked around by the system. Then you're like, oh, wait a minute, so I always think that there's an underlying spiritual narrative going on. There's the physical narrative, and it's okay, there's a plane going up in the sky. But I'm but what's the context of that? Why does that exist? And so I say that to say that I was with some friends late at night, got that voice in my head saying, okay, leave them and go across town. So I was in the city and was on 14th Street. I walked all the way across this, across town to where the Whitney Museum is, but where the High Line is. And the creator was set your work up over here. I'm okay. So I built an installation at our place in Jersey and threw it in the car, and we set up an art installation there. And then this artist comes up to me and he's like, oh yeah, that works really fantastic. And I'm oh, okay, cool. Thanks a lot. And he's like, yeah, my work's over there. And he points at the museum. So fast forward, this guy, his name is David Hammonds, and he's a tremendous artist. MacArthur Fellowship winner, a brother, and just a wealth of information. He's got a great documentary. Please look it up, and it's on Mubi, MUBI, called David Hammond's The Melt Never Ends. But this guy, he's most notable for selling snowballs on the street in you know, in the late 60s, early 70s or something like that. So that connection showed me the serendipitous nature, like more of the serendipitous nature of things. And fast forward a little bit where it happened again, I was watching this Netflix documentary about art, and I see this woman who's doing an interview in Lake Geneva in Switzerland, and the creator again is like, you're gonna contact her, you need to contact her, you're gonna work with her. I'm like, all right. And so I contact her and find her information online. I reach out to her, send her my work, and she's like, oh, Benedict, your work is amazing, I would love to work with you, we have a new digital art company that called Wise Art that we're starting up, and we want you to be one of our first artists. And I'm like, oh, word? You mean like with the thousands of digital art that I've been making for years? Because I knew this was my lane, and like I had this idea for a digital economy before this was going on. And I think it's happening because I've like listened to that voice from the beginning. And so it's kind of got me on like a different track where I'm able to create a massive library of work that's in the film for this. So my relationship to your point of working in the digital art really came from me following my inner voice. And even though Wise Art was not the premier NFT company, they weren't selling Bored Ape Yacht Club, they weren't doing all of that, but they were selling Picassos, and they were selling like the first actual physical banknote from China. So they were working with the Vatican, you know. So I'm I knew I wanted to change the world, and I aligned myself with folks that were more aligned with what I want to do, which was to utilize technology and storytelling to change the world. And so they were all right. They were already working with the UN. You know, the CEO was the head of cybersecurity for the UN for 20 years. So that's the level that I always wanted to be playing on. I didn't want to just be doing that. So again, it goes back to what you want to do as an artist and what sort of change you want. And understanding the technology deeply, understanding the scope of your vision, like where do you want your music to play? Do you want it to just be in like, you know, do you want it to be in movies? Do you want it to be this? Do you want it to be that? There's so many different formats, understanding the technology, understanding the legalities of it, not being afraid to maybe, you know, go out on the street, you know, free audience, make it cool, you know, go to the mayor's office for, you know, and get a photo permit, which is free. You don't need the insurance for it. So you can get down there and, you know, set up a tripod and be like, I'm taking photographs, when realize maybe you're making a movie there. And, you know, you can do so much, but you got to have like a kind of renegade mindset with it. You have to understand the technology, not from just the consumer perspective, but actually like, what is the context of why this technology exists? And what does it mean to the world, and where are these technology companies going with it? So that way you can kind of more be in that lane instead of just the consumer lane. And maybe you can go both, you know, in both lanes with it, instead of just thinking, you know, that you're trying to sell some NFTs with your music, because it's deeper than that. And once you understand that, then it can maybe generate more ideas for you about what you're doing.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good. Here, speaking of renegade mindset, I want to introduce you to Christina, and she has a question for you.
Hello, I'm Christina. I really appreciated what you said about like growing up in that community. It was very relatable to me, coming from communities like that in Jersey City and Bayonne.
Okay.
Entering the entertainment industry, coming from those communities, is kind of new to me because it's like very male dominated, and less than 2% is also like Latino. So I find it hard to advocate for myself. So I was gonna ask you if you have any advice for advocating for yourself in this industry while remaining like professional.
Yeah. Give yourself a calling card. You know, the national anthem for me was my calling card. It gave me, you know, a lot of people have confidence and swag based off of like their own, like high school. You know what I mean? Like that's over. So like you need a calling card. The national anthem was my calling card. It was like I paid for it myself. I shot it myself. I cut it myself. I hustled it myself. And when I would be in rooms like the $20 million penthouse that I just happened to be shooting in, and they were like, well, why are you walking around with that big camera? And I'm like, because I'm the man. You want to see? And I could break out my trailer for the national anthem, you know, and then parlay that into some more traffic and more, excuse me, some more, you know, some more movement from myself and my career. So you need something that says that like who you are, who you say you are, you know, because everybody's talking, you know. What capacity are you going to work in entertainment in?
I'm thinking either editorial or film. Like I'm like between both of those things. It's
Right.
very different industries, but similar concepts.
So as a director, you mean, or as an editor?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I shoot and cut everything I do, and I pride myself in it. And so, if I were you, do both. You know, you got an iPhone or an Android in your pocket, I'm sure. Like, get into it. Shoot 5 minutes. Shoot. You know, gather your friends together. It's great practice to learn how to organize and to utilize. You know, you're at a college right now. I always say to kids in college, to young people in college, I'm saying like, yo, you've got facilities. Shoot it. You know, you've got friends, everybody's on the same page pretty much, y'all have free time. It's the perfect time to go out and develop a story, utilize your resources. I'm sure the parents are not like pay for everything, you know. So there's, you know, see it for what it is if you can fit it into your schedule. But have something that says who you are, and then that's your representative. So whether they don't like you or not, whether they don't like the color of you, and I've been in those rooms where they're like, "You did this." That's how they used to look at me. I remember giving them projects when I was 19 for like these huge directors that were hiring for things, and they would be like, "You shot this," and I didn't understand what that was until years later, and I'm like, "Oh, because I'm young and black, they don't get like why I could have shot this way." But my mom used to say, "If you don't hear, you must feel." So make them feel it, you know. Um, Put something together and make it nasty and be like, yo, here, this is me. And you know, that gives me a little, you know, some bravado to speak like that because yeah, make them feel it. Don't let nobody squash you for nothing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Best of
Good,
luck.
yeah. Hey, make it nasty is the new tagline for this class as we're into practicum. I dig it. I think we got time for our last one. Tyrell, introduce yourself and
Tyrell Penelba. I'm from Albany, New York. I'm in the fashion, so I'm kind of developing a clothing brand of mine. I've been developing for like over a year now.
Okay.
My question is, how do you stay creative or find creativity? And do you think creativity is a natural ability or a skill you can develop?
I think it's a natural ability. I think that it is really activated by your parents and your environment. My mom, even though things were hard in the house, she wanted me to be a professional artist. So we had a lot of exposure to that. That exposure and that sense of freedom when it came to being creative in my household was extremely important. I'm seeing now because now with our kids, they're geniuses and they're highly developed creatively. And a lot of that is because they have the freedom to do that. So we're not like squashing their telomeres on their cells by making them not be into what they're naturally acclimated to. Creativity for me is very easy to access because I see that this world is hell bent on like taking away our sense of self through various systems. Because it's better to sell to everyone when everybody kind of looks the same and acts the same. And when if you know, I stay very healthy. I try to, you know, take walks every day. Like I'm holding this meeting outside. I know that a healthy mind and body and spirit is going to make all that conduit for information and creativity flow so much easier. So my advice to you is your sovereignty as a human being in this world that's trying to twist and turn you and label you when you just want to be yourself. You know, tell it to go to hell and like, you know, just own yourself and you know, whether it be whoever's getting on your nerves, you know, try to stay away from them. And that helps with your creativity. You know, whoever's showing you love and watering you, stay around them. You know, it's okay to go and take a walk. It's okay to write down your feelings. It's okay to, like, you know, creativity is like a faucet, and the more you open it up, or it's like a lens. The more you use it, the more it's going to get loose. You know, you get like a new pair of sneakers, you got to break it in. You got to break it in a bit, and you know, don't wait for the perfect time to do anything. And you know, sometimes you don't know what you're doing. You know, when you're drawing when you're a kid and somebody comes over your shoulder and like, oh, what are you drawing? And you're like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes when you're a creator, as you get older, you don't know what you're making, but you know you're being called to something magnetically, and you got to just stick with it. Realize things are happening for you; they're not happening to you. Make smart decisions. Stay healthy. Um, with your creativity, it's very, you know, easy to get mixed up in other things that may generate more creativity. But just be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with your body. Stay healthy. Keep your mind, body, and spirit healthy, and go to the library, man. You know, learn about what you're doing, do your homework, and get encouraged by the folks that came behind you. Your Professor Ed is a supreme OG when it comes to a lot of things, and so I would just stay close and pick his brain and just get to know him as a person, and there, you know, there's, you know, we know somebody similar, Paul Levitz, that I didn't know that Ed knew, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, this
I gotta
gentleman.
tell you how I almost got kicked out of his office one time.
Oh, I didn't get there yet. Thank God.
No, he's great. He's great.
But just like there's so many people around you that are loving, and the more you love on yourself and you put yourself out there, you know, go to Eventbrite, sign up for anything. You know, if there's, you know, go to free RSVP, Google that. You know what I mean? Like music, you know, Universal Records free RSVP, or you know, Chanel, you know, New York Fashion Week free RSVP. Go and look for things to put yourself in the room, so that way you can be around a more creative environment, be around more creative people, and sharpen your blade as a creative person, so that way when you need to access it, you can just dip in. It's nothing for you, you know. I hope that.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. Hey, you know what, Benedict, this has been just fantastic. Thank you so much on behalf of all of you.
Oh, thank y'all.
I do want to point out my co-teacher here, Will Van Dyke, who's a great guy. As you were mentioning all the bands, I could see the gears spinning. Great music industry background too. Hey, thanks very much. Would you mind if people reached out to you, either LinkedIn or via email, if they have follow-up questions?
Yeah, let me put my information in. It's Benedict at benedicthadley.com. If I can.
Yeah.
I can't. My Zoom. Okay, cool.
Oh, you know, I could pass it along too easily.
Yeah.
I just want to get your permission.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big fan of like helping the young people, and you know, sharing my network if it makes sense. And so, you know, best of luck with everyone, and thank you, Ed, for the opportunity to speak to everyone. And you know, don't be a stranger, any of y'all. If y'all need help, if y'all need introductions or whatever, I know it's kind of hard in this world. So, you know, just holler at me. I'm here for y'all.
Sounds great. Hey, Benedict, thank you very much. Just great. Benedict Hadley, everybody. All right, we'll see you soon. Maybe
Peace.
at a birthday party somewhere soon. Okay.
Good.
Bye-bye
All right.
now.